Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to part 3 of my FALL-OWEEN Thrifted Pumpkin Makeovers. If you missed part 1 or part 2, I will leave both of those videos linked at the end of this one so you can go directly to either of them if you choose to do so. Well, it is Create Day, my friends. Let's get started. This is the thrifted pumpkin I'm using for this project. I'm going to remove the stickers and get this cleaned up really well. And the first thing I do is I give it a coat, once it was all cleaned up, I give it a coat of my white gesso, which was unnecessary. I think I was thinking I was going to use a different type of paint on this for a base coat. So I wanted it to have a nice primer on here because it is kind of a slick surface, but in the end this step was not necessary because I ended up giving it a couple of coats of my Rust-Oleum spray paint in the color Espresso. Now I'm going to use this bakery tissue that I got from Amazon and my matte Mod Podge to add some texture to my pumpkin. So I'm just going to tear those pieces of bakery tissue into random strips and pieces, and then I will glue that down just like you do any type of decoupage, applying the Mod Podge onto the pumpkin, laying down a piece of the bakery tissue, and then gluing that down, hoping to get lots of texture and wrinkles. When that was completely dry, I'm going to start in with my paint. The first one I'm using is called Patina, and I'm going to use a moistened sea sponge to dab this on in different areas all around the pumpkin. I don't have a specific pattern in mind, I just want to create a patina effect. This is going to be a very metallic type pumpkin, so I want to not necessarily do rust, but just have an aged patina on it. The next color I use is a metallic color called Rich Espresso. I'm dabbing this on to partially cover up some of the patina color and some of the brown base coat. There will be a list of all the products I used in today's video in my description box, along with my affiliate links. Now I'm going to add in some of my copper metallic paint. Again, just sponging randomly, covering up a little bit of that patina, a little bit of the base coat, and a little bit of the first metallic color. And lastly, I'm using this color called Brushed Bronze. This was a nice color to kind of help blend in around all those other colors, to kind of have everything look like it blends together instead of just being separate colors on the pumpkin. So now we're going to start with the eyes. I've got these little gears. This was from a pack of buttons from Joann's, as was this one and the one underneath. They are plastic that look like metal. And then I have these two little wooden ones that came from this pack from the Woodpile at Hobby Lobby. And then I have these two resin castings that I did from this mold, which was this, I don't know what this is, but it was on clearance and I thought they were kind of cool. So I got that at Michael's. And now I'm going to give my resin castings and my little wood gears a couple of coats of my black chalk paint. For the mouth, I'm using this jean zipper. I think it's about 7 inches long. And I'm going to open that up and figure out how I'm going to position that on here so that he has a nice grinning mouth. I'm using Fabri-Tac glue to crisscross and secure down that open end. And then I'm going to clamp that together and let it dry. And now on the other end, I'm going to cross those over and glue them as well so that it comes to a little point at the end like the other side. Now back to the gears for the eyes. I'm using that rich espresso on my black pieces. And then I will take my plastic ones that are already a metallic look and apply the copper metallic paint to those. For his nose, I'm using one of these corner book protectors that I got from Amazon. And I'm just using my pliers to crimp down the back to the front so that it will lay more flat and not have that opening. And then this will also get a coat of that copper metallic paint. Now that the glue is dry on that zipper, I'm going to go ahead and trim up those ends, just giving them a more pointed shape. So now I can glue this onto my pumpkin, and I'm using the Titebond Quick and Thick for this. I'm going to press this down. I just do like 1/2 at a time, get it into the position I want, and pressing it down so that it will go into the little grooves on the pumpkin so that I get a nice adhered connection there. And then I'm using a baby wipe just to wipe off the excess glue that oozes out underneath. So now I have that end taped down so that I can go in and glue down the other half. The gears are going to get some rub and buff. I'm using antique gold and Spanish copper. I'm starting with the Spanish copper because it's the darker color. I'm going to rub that on just using my finger, and then I can go over and kind of highlight things a little bit with the antique gold. Now I'm going to start on the hat. This is one of those little peat pots that you can get at Dollar Tree or your home improvement store. And the first thing I'm going to do is give this a couple of coats of black chalk paint. And this really turns out to be a cool little hat. So I'm glad that I have this whole big package of these, especially with Christmas coming, and if I'm going to make snowmen or something that I need hats for. These are just like the perfect shape for that. For the brim of the hat, I'm using this piece of craft foam, and I just scrounged up a lid that's about the size that I need, put that on that foam and traced it out so that I could cut that out. I'm using Fabri-Tac glue to go around the bottom of that peat pot and then attach that into the center of my little craft foam circle. Once that was dry, I gave that brim, top and bottom, a coat of my black chalk paint. The glue on the zipper mouth is all dry, so now I'm going to paint that black section with my rich espresso metallic paint using a brush that's just big enough to give me some coverage without spilling over onto my pumpkin. I have this ribbon that I got from, I believe, Joann's, that I want to use around the base of my hat. So I'm going to figure out how much approximately that I need, trim that off, and then I'm going to paint this with that same rich espresso metallic paint. I want to cover up as much of that red in the center as I can, but I also want to tone down the really bright gold on the outer edges so it fits in better with my color scheme for this project. So now it's time to assemble our eyes. I'm going to take one and take them apart and then use my Fabri-Tac glue to put them back together. So I have the resin casting on the bottom, and this is the wooden gear that I'm putting on top of that piece. And that will raise up enough that I can then put that button gear on top of that, and the little knob in the center won't be poking up enough to keep it from lying flat. On the next one, I am doing the same thing, using that little wooden gear first, and then I have the smaller little metallic gear to go on top of that. So I end up with 3 gears on each eye. I'm using super glue. This is just Dollar Tree super glue to attach the nose. Back to the hat, I'm going to seal in that chalk paint with my Duraclear matte varnish. The paint on our ribbon piece is all dry, so I'm going to use some antique gold ribbon buff across the top of that, and then I will go over that with some of the Spanish copper ribbon buff as well. Once that was done, I'm just using a soft cloth to wipe off any excess. I'm going to use my metallic rich espresso to do some dry brushing on my hat. I'm offloading most of the paint onto the paper towel and then going around the brim of the hat, making sure I get this on the edges, and then I will go around the remainder of the hat. It's time to glue on the eyes. So I've got my Dollar Tree super glue. Going to place that all over the back, put it into position and hold it for a minute till it sets. And what I'm doing is bridging the gap between the ridge so that it sits on the two raised edges so I can get good adhesion. Doing the same with the other eye. And this is really starting to come together now. I'm using hot glue to attach the ribbon to the base of my hat. I have these antique brass plated decorative tacks that I picked up from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to give them each a coat of my rub and buff, first in the antique gold, and then follow that up with the Spanish copper. I will be placing these on the corners of his mouth, so I go ahead and punch them through first to establish a hole, and then I add my Fabri-Tac glue and push it down into the existing hole, holding it just for a few seconds until it has a chance to set. I'm going to add some embellishments to my hat now. I have this feather that is actually an earring, and then I have some more of those faux metal buttons that I got from Joann's. I started by cutting off the earring part of that feather, and then I'm going to attach that to my hat using some hot glue. I'm attaching this just on top of that ribbon that I put around the base, and once that's set up, I will go ahead and glue on the rest of my little embellishments. Now to tie in the facial features and the details on the hat, I'm using this gilding wax by Gilded Touch. It's called Misty Teal. And I use a brush and my finger to add this to the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and the embellishments on the hat. Now this product is a little bit more difficult to work with than Rub and Buff simply because it tends to dry out really quickly. So you have to work quickly using small amounts that you have, spread out onto your paper towel. Other than that, it works great. It's time to glue on the hat. So I've got my Fabri-Tac glue. I'm going to spread that around onto the bottom, attach that to the top of the pumpkin, and this dapper looking dude is done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you find my content useful. will like and subscribe to my channel. But more importantly, I hope I've inspired you to go create something. See you next time.